That is not the problem. The problem here is why you find no transitional species. That's the problem. Not the why you don't find any transitional ones between the species, why you don't find any transitional species at all. Why you go from a fish to an amphibian. Why you go from an invertebrate to a fish. Nobody here has answered that question. Why fishes suddenly appear in the fossil record without a trace of an amphibian. Without a trace of a transition. Has anybody answered that question? There isn't a mechanism in this world. And nobody has suggested it. You haven't even tried to answer the question. I want you to tell me how an invertebrate changed into fishes, I mean completely diversified, completely different, very different from one another, internal skeleton, bony armored plate, suddenly appeared. And supposedly those fishes came from an invertebrate. Why we don't find any transition? Would the punctuated equilibrium explain that? Absolutely. There isn't any explanation.
That's the question, please. You should have an answer question. Why did you tell us about the other side?
Stay dry, big guy.
Why did you tell us about the minority?
I'm not starting to worry about this.
Okay, before we go to the question, this lecture was scheduled to end at about 10, so we're running out of time. So please, I'd like to ask both the questioners and Dr. Gish to keep your comments short and to the point so we can get as many in as we can in time remaining.
Yeah. This is slightly away from what we've been arguing about. What you were saying earlier, you keep saying God, He. It could be a Hindu god, etc.
Not tell us what God it was, who God is, or whether it was female or male. Not at all. But I would think, ladies and gentlemen, I think the problem is when people want to make God man-like, and really I think we're commanded to try to be more God-like rather than try to take God and make female-like. You try to say that's the way things are supposed to work. I don't worry about things like that when the God is male or female. You want to take God and make him human. God is not human.
Not your man. You have said that there are no fossil intermediates, and especially I'm a physical anthropologist, so I deal with the human fossil record. If I could give you at this time a fossil intermediate, could that possibly change your mind? And I am prepared to do it right now. This is Captain Brian. Dr. White, who also was the person who named A. afarensis, has brought with him an intermediate form. So, if Dr. White is willing to
Give him Timmy. Yes, certainly. I think what Dr. W.R. Johnson said a number of years ago If you had a true time sequence, intermediates that were a true time sequence, then that would be the evidence that we're looking for evolution.
Well, if we go into rocks of 500,000 years of age, we find something that is not a human and yet not an ape, but somewhere between an ape ancestor and a human being. And we show you that fossil, you would be prepared to change your mind here and now.
Providing it was a convincing case and it held up to the scrutiny of time. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, now wait a minute. Ramapithecus was touted as a transitional form, and I heard David Philbin speak on that creature. He got up and said, beyond doubt, that creature walked upright. Now, if he would have flaunted that in my face and said, now, would you believe if I showed it to you? It turned out Ramapithecus is not intermediate, didn't walk upright. And neither did Piltdown, and neither did Neanderthal man, and neither did these other creatures. I say it's got to stand the test of time. The Austriategriphia example of oyster evolution is now known not to be an example of evolution. The graptolite, the nautiloid, and many other examples. Yes, Dr. White, if this thing will stand the test of time, but it's got to stand the test of time.
It stood the test of time for approximately 500,000 years.
Is this your Lucy? What is this?
It'll be your ancestor.
That's as I recall, Donald Johanson said this when the skull was reconstructed, it looked like a small female gorilla. Was he misquoted or was that correct?
That's not Lucy. I think you know.
Well, all right.
This is an example of Homo erectus. It's a different genus and a different
Yes, I know what erectus
This is Homo erectus.
Yes.
Species, the creationists claim that this is lost because the pygmy man fossils no longer exist. Of course, this is only a cat here.
Yes, it's the model, not the
It's
cast.
not the real thing.
That's right.
I suppose that would be the argument.
Well, I would say this. I just recall what Marcelin Boule had to say about that creature. He said, now wait a minute. No, that's what he said about the Java man. He said, if you looked at the skull cap, you would say ape. If you looked at the femur, you'd say man. Now, a lot of people don't believe that femur had anything to do with the owner of the skull cap. Furthermore, Marcelin Boule said that creature was too monkey-like to have made the tools found on the side of their feet. He said, all right, he said, who then killed What is it? It's an ape. Sure, look at it. Well, look at it. All right, wait a minute. Chimpanzee. I did not say it was a gorilla. What I said that it was ape. Now, let me tell you what Marcelin Boule said again. All right. What he said was this. He said that creature was too ape-like to have made the tools found on the site. He asked the question then, who was the creature who killed and ate those things? He said he believed that it was true man. It was true man who had killed and ate those creatures. Now, I'm not the expert in the field, but I think Marcelin Boule was. He did examine the fossil, and he was unconvinced. All right, I tell you, Marcelin Boule looked at exactly the same fossil, did he not?
This was found in 1976. It was dead when it...
Was it the same Was it the same species that Dr. Gould looked at? It was Homo erectus?
No, this is an intermediate between Homo sapiens and Homo erectus. This is the intermediate that is the phantom that does not exist in the museums of the world, and it's right here tonight, and Dr. Gish refuses to even discuss its affinities. I think that we can see the world's foremost creation scientists here tonight unable to discuss the evidence at hand.
I want to point out, ladies and gentlemen, that Philbin could have been here and argued the same way for Ramapithecus, and others could have argued for the others, just as thoroughly and as emphatically as Dr. White has done. I say that data has to stand the test of time. You have to take, all right. Most of the material in this field has not stood the test of time. The Australopithecines, which are supposed to be in the direct line of man.
We're not talking about any of those.
All right, Dr. White, what I said, it's got to stand the test of time.
How long is that?
Well, it's going to take it. Well, it took 50 years to expose the fraud that was built down man. It took probably 20 or 25 years for Ramapithecus to go on the ice, into the ice can.
Meet here in 19...
And so I would say the Australopithecus has stood for about 50 years, and it's gone into the ice can. I say it's got to stand for the time.
It's been a wonderfully enjoyable discussion I've had with you.
Well, you're right.
I'd like to point out it's only taken 3 hours to expose this.
And what Joan Hanson has done, according to Lord Zuckerman, is the myth of anatomy. He said he had compared the methods of anatomy to the myth of anatomy. He says anybody can look at a bone and make declarations of that kind. He says it's a myth. When you take your fossils and do your multivariate analysis and the other methods used by Lord Zuckerman and by Charles Oxnard and others and reach certain conclusions, that's the method of anatomy. And I am content to stand on the methods of anatomy of Lord Zuckerman and Charles Oxnard. And let me tell you something else. I heard a lecture by Dr. Owen Lovejoy on the knee joint of Lucy. He had that fossil, just like Dr. White had brought up the fossil, he showed it. And he said, now I performed several manipulations with this knee joint, and in every instance, he said, it proved that that creature walked upright. Now, who am I to challenge the expert? But then, he went on to describe a multivariate analysis. He took that knee joint and put it in a certain orientation, measured the distance between many points. Then he rotated it. I measured the distance between many points. Then he rotated and continued to do that. Then he took the knee joints of apes, monkeys, and men and did the same thing. And then he showed the computerized printout of the data. And this is what he showed. That's man. And out here was the ape. Out here is the data from the monkey. Where did the knee joint of Lucy fall? Right here, in the middle of the ape. And what did he say? I don't know what to make of that data. And I asked him about that in a workshop. Well, he says, I guess that data didn't mean anything. All right. Now he said, from his eyeballing, he claimed that that creature walked upright. And when he did a multivariate analysis, which is an objective test, it showed that it didn't walk upright. And he simply ignored the data. Now that's the methods of anatomy. I'll take about one more question. I'm just about
one point that is on neither side here, neither the speaker nor the audience.
And that is when you mention there are only two possibilities here, either evolution or creation. That's not logical. There could be other possibilities. And I'd like to mention one possibility that explains the origin of life that is just being written now by scientists. And this is a book that just came out by Rupert Sheldrake called The New Science of Life, in which he posits there are fields, morphogenetic fields, that create the organism, that create the form. It's neither God nor evolution, as described there. So there is another possibility.
I'm sorry, would you repeat? I didn't hear what you were saying.
There's a third possibility.
Listen. What was the other possibility? I missed it, I'm sorry.
You said there are only two possibilities.
Yeah, I'm not here the third. I'm sorry.
The third possibility is that there are fields. They're called morphogenetic fields, fields of form, structure form. They're not energetic fields. And Dr. Sheldrake in this book describes them. It is a theory that's already in biology, these morphogenetic fields. And that this is a postulate that can explain the origin of the form. And he also in this book gives certain predictions, certain experiments that can be done to test this hypothesis. So there are other possibilities. That's the point I'm making.
Yes,
It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Probably would be, I think most people would consider it to be another mechanism of evolution.
No, this can't be a mechanism because it's a whole thing. It's a gestalt. The field is a form that's complete in itself, so it isn't a mechanism. It isn't the same kind of thing. It's a form that lays down the pattern creates this, all these species. There are different forms behind the species.
I think maybe what that, I forgot who was suggesting something like that, the nomogenesis or tropogenesis or something like that.
Morphogenesis.
I think that's sort of the same idea.
It is an idea in biology, but this plant physiologist who just wrote this book, who's really on campus now, talking to certain groups, revive this, and it's a very closely reasoned argument as to the existence of these fields. They're not the electromagnetic fields. They are fields of form and structure, which lay down this pattern, which creates these organisms.
Do they have any idea where these patterns come from in the first place?
Well, he has a theory to explain the pattern that comes from previous members of the species. That's his explanation. But there may be other explanations, but this is at least one line of thought which says that it's either God nor standard evolutionary theory.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my voice is just about gone. It's 10 o'clock. So thank you very much for your kindness.